Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Let's Talk Broncos, brought to you by Mile High Sports. I'm your host, Bree Maestas, joined as always by Zach Seegers and Joey Richards. You can find all of Zach and Joey's excellent work over on milehighsports.com, and you can catch all of our previous episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Joey and Zach, how are you both doing this evening?
I'm doing good. Good day of work. Just hanging out. I was able to check out Zach's awesome Twitter thing to catch up with training camp today, Twitter thread. And so that's always pleasant. It sounds like I missed a really, really jam-packed practice. So I'm just excited to hear what Zach has to enlighten us with us today.
Yeah, it was a good day out there on the practice field. Got to see a lot of 11-on-11s, which has been a consistent theme with this coaching staff, and it's made I think camp a lot more fun this year than it was in like the Fangio years.
Yeah, absolutely. Joey, you stole my lead in because training camp, the first week, has been jam-packed, and we have lots to talk about tonight. I want to remind everyone watching, if you're over on Twitter, you need to jump over to the YouTube or the Facebook stream to get your comments and questions highlighted. And also, if you'd like to ask Zach to cover some things for the rest of this week through training camp, ask him some questions so he can answer them in the live thread, please make sure to do so, and make sure you're following Zach_Seegers and turning those notifications on so you can get up-to-date information on everything that's going on during the day. We're going to start off with my favorite player and the guy who's been lighting it up. Patrick Surtain has been the name that everyone has been throwing out there for the performance of the day. And I obviously, I think he's the number one person that I would point to. Zach, what are you seeing out of PS2? And how is this different from what we were seeing last year? Do you think he's just getting that much better and quicker out there?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is just a player becoming more comfortable in the NFL, which is crazy because he looked so comfortable last year. But, there is still more to grow and develop, get used to that NFL play speed. And this year there is no learning curve. He already knows what to do and is going out there and doing it. And every day, I was thinking this throughout practice, and then Cody and I were recording our quick little training camp recap show, and he took the words right out of my mouth. It's like, every day it becomes more and more, man, is Patrick Surtain the best player on this field?
That's what I was going to
ask. And that's not saying Justin Simmons looks worse or Russell Wilson looks worse. They both look great. They're really, really good players. And I think Justin Simmons is still the best safety in the NFL. But man, like Surtain is just so good. He is. I put it out on Twitter. He has every physical tool and every like mental technical tool. The one hole that might exist in his game is the tackling stuff. I want to see that and how that develops. But if that gets there, he's like a perfect cornerback. It's insane that we're already here in year 2, and I don't know. I'm excited to see where it takes us. But he is otherworldly out there. He just looks different than every other single person. Sutton is consistently matching up with Darby, and that'll be a good matchup. Probably Sutton wins more times than most. And then against Surtain, it's just like a shutout. Like Sutton will have good success against Darby, who I think is a really nice quarterback when healthy. But against Surtain, it's just like 0% chance. This guy is a monster. And if you look at the numbers last year against the Jamar Chases and other top receivers he faced, it's backed up.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask that, Zach. So do you think that what are the odds that you guys would give? Or is it reasonable to believe that he is the best player on the Broncos? Just pound for pound. I'm not saying the most impact because I think we all think Russell Wilson is that guy. But do you guys both agree that that's like a possibility and a strong one?
I think it's definitely a strong possibility. I think it's definitely a strong possibility. I'd say the odds of that happening this season, I'd say it's like an even money bet, like plus 100 or minus 100, however you want to do it. I'd say it's him or Simmons, in my opinion. I think that's where it will come down to. And yeah, pick your poison there. I think you can make a really strong case for either.
And you've also seen the improvement with Justin Simmons. Just when you think he couldn't get that much better, he obviously is also showing out during training camp. But I would venture to say Patrick Surtain is that dude. And that's all we can. That's all really Broncos country has been able to say. So I have no hesitations there. Maybe it's a tad bit tinged with optimism. But even Coach Outen's response to, hey, can you just let us complete a pass out there? It's become memeage at this point. He's just that darn good. That slow motion that you posted, Zach, of that just basically that pass that he broke up was incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. Just looking at that play, like Sutton has positioning on that play and really like gets up and has his hands on the ball, and Surtain just plays through him. He's behind on that play, kind of mossed Sutton almost. Of course, didn't make the catch, but to break up the pass, and his timing was impeccable. Yeah, just wild stuff. And then you saw it again on the I think our last episode was before the jump ball play, where you had the jump ball to Sutton, and Sutton on that one pretty much mossed Surtain, but he got his hand in there at the last second to break it up. Surtain's remarkable. He is a superstar.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, Zach, you mentioned it, but everything, even if he doesn't like get the tackling all the way, sure. I mean, it's impossible to get the perfect player at the position, especially for a guy at his height. I've always noticed at DBs, it's tough for those taller guys to get low enough to the point where they're not out there trying to make arm tackles and stuff like that. Like, it takes a lot of practice, I think. And it's just more times than not, you see those guys struggle more because it's just open field, right? It's hard. You have a guy running straight at you and you're that tall. It's tough to get that low. But even if he doesn't get that all the way completely and Surtain just continues to improve in his coverage, you have to be really, really excited. He's a special player at 6'2". Dad played in the NFL, comes out of a Nick Saban defense, so it makes sense why he's all mentally where he is as well. He's just such a fun player. And I mean, it's been 1,000 times, but I think everyone in Broncos country thinks that he's that guy, to Bree's point.
Zach,
he's an all-pro this year.
Oh, it would be absolutely it would just be a disgrace if that somehow floats him by this season.
Yeah. I mean, that is saying he's a top 4 corner. I think you got Jalen Ramsey. AJ Terrell's going into year 3, and he was an all-pro in year 2. So, like, Jair Alexander, there's a lot of awesome corners out there.
Yeah.
Lattimore, of course. There's a lot of awesome corners out there. I don't think it's a shoe-in for it, but that's one of my bold predictions going.
You think Surtain's an all-pro?
I think that's what I'm seeing from him in practice, man. And you look back at his tape, his rookie season, especially towards the end of the year, like, I don't know. I don't know if anyone played Jamar Chase as well as he did down the stretch of the season.
Yeah.
And that might even include Jalen Ramsey in the Super Bowl, who I if I'm remembering correctly, got burnt by Jamar Chase on one.
Mm-hmm.
And like, again, that's not all Surtain. Some of it's how the defense plays and yada yada. But I don't know. I'm buying the Surtain hype. I really think he is going to, emerge as like one of the, 50 or so best players in the NFL.
Wow.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Zach, can you talk to me just for a second before we move on to our next player? Tackling, as far as you're seeing, what's that number one step he has to take in order to improve that? Is that targeting a bit lower? Is he a little too high still?
Yeah, I'd say technical. He's arm tackling and being high. I think especially with his frame and how strong he is, you see his strength show up in coverage. I feel like he has the ability to do it. I just feel like last season he was often, trying to tackle guys by their shoulders, and you saw him kind of get thrown off on occasion. I'm not overly concerned about it. Again, even if that remains his Achilles heel for the rest of his career, I think he can be a superstar cornerback. But if he figures that out and uses his physical, because he is built like a monster at that position, if he figures out how to utilize that physical strength into being a really good tackler at the cornerback position, you're looking at like a flawless player. And that's what I'm talking about, maybe him stealing that throne away from Jalen Ramsey as the top guy in the league.
It's interesting when you see guys at that size. I've always found that when guys run directly at them, it's tougher. When they try to like go around or it's to the left or right, that's when the tackle radius and their height really is like, oh, that's when it's like that's a huge beneficiary thing to his game. But when a guy's running directly at him and Surtain's right there and he's that guy that makes the tackle, it's tougher because you just dropping your shoulder. It's so much easier for a guy at 5'10" to get where you need to get on your knees, chop the legs, because 9 out of 10 times these cornerbacks aren't going to be stronger or anything like that or as powerful as a running back. So you really need to take your leverage at their legs, right? If you go up high, it's not going to work.
Yep. I could sing the praises of Patrick Surtain for the rest of the show, but I know we've got lots to cover here. I do want to get to our next player and some training camp notes on day one for number one on his return, KJ Hamler. Looks like he had a ton of highlights today, which was exciting to see. I asked everyone on Twitter to flood my mentions with anything and everything that KJ was up to. Zach, what did you see out of number one today?
Yeah, didn't do any of the teamwork stuff, which was a lot of what was happening today, but this was just a step in the right direction for him. Had some nice catches. You saw him run some routes, which was cool. During one of the warm-up drills, he ran a deep post, and Wilson threw the ball to him, and he had to wait for the ball to get there, which, again, from the vantage point of the media where you're on the field, and this was a play working away from me towards the far end zone. It's hard to really gauge how fast the player is moving, relative to like, hey, was that the same old KJ Hamler or like a 90% version, 85% version? But yeah, I mean, enough speed to be waiting on a Russell Wilson deep ball. So that was nice. And then I think the thing that really stood out today with KJ was his press conference. I don't know if you guys have read any of the quotes or seen any of it. I just have had an article literally published 4 minutes ago from Mile High Sports where I barely wrote anything. I just tried to use as much of his quotes as possible because I think he should be the one speaking on it. But just a really powerful message about what he went through. And just how hard it was for him to deal with his ACL recovery and the loss of his grandma. And I don't know. I thought it was just a really, really powerful message from KJ.
Yeah. Do you guys remember KJ Hamler last training camp? He was a beast, man. I loved KJ Hamler. And there was some circumstances where the guy was really like, if it was one-on-one man coverage, it was almost impossible to cover him. He's just too quick, too fast, in and out of his breaks. Things like that. And we saw it in the preseason. I think all of us remember that Drew Lock post deep in the preseason to KJ Hamler for a touchdown. And man, it would be so exciting if we got that back. I was so hyped on KJ coming out. And then last training camp, I was like, oh, wow, this is really spectacular. I hope that he's able to come back 100%. And he's able to catch some Russell Wilson deep balls.
I love it, Joey. Exactly. I think we all had a lot of excitement from last season with the unexpected and terrible injury that he did suffer. Zach, I'm glad that you pointed out his statement today was so powerful. I just saw the coverage from it and listened to him in his own words. I highly recommend checking that out and then reading Zach's article over on milehighsports.com. Impactful. And just to hear what a player goes through, not only with that injury there, but also the hip that was just not even expected. It's a little bit of adversity thrown in with a lot of hard work to get back in time for the first game. And it looks like he's headed in the right direction. Couldn't be more excited for that. Did you notice, I guess, so they kept him out of teamwork, obviously. Do you think that he's trending in the right direction to participate this week, or do you think it'll be next week before he's ready? I guess it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later, but probably a few days out. They'll see how things, continue to progress after these few days. Hackett's been doing these things in chunks of 3, where you have 3 hard days and then a rest. So maybe what would that be? Thursday? Maybe Thursday's the day for Hamler.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I'm definitely rooting for him. I know that we're all waiting anxiously to see what he does. An interesting note out of camp today was Quinn Miners getting that nod in the starting position after some film review, which leads us to a little bit of guard talk on him and Moody. How are you feeling about that position in general? What did you see out there today from the guards? And how did the two of them stack up?
Yeah. Today, Miners kind of had a rough day. I think he got either 1 or 2 false start penalties. Wasn't his cleanest practice. The whole offense struggled in that department. But the one that's really been standing out to me, and I think Quinn Miners is, both of them are making Dalton Reisner's job be in jeopardy. But the one that's standing out to me is Netani Muti, who is just a monster on that offensive line. And this is a big boy was I wrong moment, because you could go back and listen to this podcast the moment Nathaniel Hackett was hired, and it was like, man, that interior offensive line is a mess. I think the one thing we do know is that Moody won't be a part of it, and now he might be a starter. So we were horribly wrong on that. But yeah, his movement skills are jump out, not because they're so otherworldly, but just I did not think he had that movement ability. It's helping make up for his lack of length. And my goodness, everyone who watched him back in college or throughout his first couple years with the Broncos know how heavy his hands are and how hard he hits defensive players. And it's been really impressive to watch. I got in a Twitter controversy because I was so blown away by one of Netani Muti's reps, because either, according to DJ Jones, he slipped. That's his version of the story. All I saw was Netani Muti hit DJ Jones in his upper chest, and DJ Jones hit the ground. It sounds like he slipped at the same time as that occurred. Point being, DJ Jones has to be the hardest guy on the team to do that to. And Netani Muti did it in pass protections. Or in pass protection. It wasn't like a run blocking rep where he was charging down a guy. He was backstepping and hit him like just with one punch. It was one of the freakier athletic things I've ever seen, like on field level in person before. My jaw immediately hit the ground. It was phenomenally impressive.
You know what is an underrated aspect of Moody's career to this point is that in college, the guy couldn't stay healthy at all. Now, knock on wood, everybody. Seriously, knock on wood right now. But for the most part, like literally in his college career, he couldn't finish a season. And it wasn't just like a little injury. It would be like, no, this is a season-ending injury right now, here and here and here and here. So I'm pretty happy that the guy, like to this point, cross your fingers, like I said, isn't hurt all the time, right? Like at least he made it through a season without having one of those huge injuries that he was having in college. And I think that's exciting because there were a lot of draft analysts that thought he was a third round pick, up to a third round pick, if he stayed healthy in his college career. So that's a big aspect right there. It's huge.
I think DJ even said he would have had him top 50, which maybe not as a top 50 pick, but on his top 50 big board.
Which is,
injuries.
He was such a plow in college, man.
Watch his Alabama tape. True freshman, one of his first games too, because it was one of those like Alabama easy early season warm-up games. Goes up against Alabama and is blocking, I want to say Deron Payne. It was one of those guys who was a first-round pick to Washington. I can't remember which one. And was standing him up and was pancaking Deron Payne as this true freshman in like his second career start. It might have even been his first career start. It's a shame what injuries did to him in college, but he is an absolute monster. Excited to see things finally work out for him here.
Yeah. So am I, man. It's interesting, Zach. I was in the exact same boat as you. Obviously, but the people may not have known. Yeah, I didn't think he could work out at all in this game. Now, I haven't been able to put my eyes on him really and seen it for myself, but I think Zach and so many others, I haven't seen anybody else really talk down on his training camp. It's only been, hey, this guy's really, really good. So that's what I'm going to go with right now. I'm excited for it.
A little bit of a 180 isn't bad. We'll stay on the topic of the offensive line. Ty wants to know, you're talking guards, but what are your thoughts on offensive tackle Tevin Jenkins, and would you want the Broncos to explore trading for him?
I thought Tevin Jenkins was awesome at college. Now that injury obviously happened, and there are, from what I've seen, major maturity concerns with Tevin Jenkins there. I don't think it's really worth it. I think that we signed Billy Turner for a reason. I obviously have bias for this next one, but I want my guy Calvin Anderson to get a shot at that right tackle spot. Maybe if Russell Wilson were the one to make a pitch for him, to go out and trade for him, but it's saying a lot that he was an early second round pick, only slid to the second round because of injury. He would have been early, like I would not top 10 or anything, but he would have been a fairly early
top 20 pick.
Top 20 pick in the draft if it weren't for the injury. And they're already trying to move on. They're saying, hey, he's not working out with our coaching staff. We may want to trade this guy. That speaks volumes. Like the other tackle I think of is what was his name? Isaiah Wynn. Like these are the conversations we're talking about with sophomore year top 50 guys getting traded. Like it just doesn't happen. And if it usually does, it's a big deal. No one wants to trade that big of an investment they put into a player.
Yeah, I really wouldn't be interested in Tevin Jenkins. If the Broncos were in a worse position at tackle, I think I could be interested. I think there are teams that definitely should consider it. But you look at the Broncos, they are draft capital poor right now. We're expecting them to try and trade some of their roster bubble guys in order to recoup some draft capital. And they're set at tackle. They've got like 4 solid ones. If you want to go back to, you could even say 5 if you want to throw in Tom Compton and Quinn Bailey. I know the Broncos are very high on Quinn Bailey, and I think understandably so. And he probably doesn't make the final roster. So I don't think you're giving up draft capital to get Tevin Jenkins. And echo everything Joey said. The omens around Tevin Jenkins are very troubling.
Yeah, like when do you ever trade a top 50 pick in their sophomore year? Like we've seen guys play.
It rarely turns out.
Yeah, I mean we've seen guys play absolutely terrible, like first rounders, right? We never see them traded their sophomore year. Like they're always just trying to get him going. For whatever reason, Tevin Jenkins, they're not even willing to give him that chance.
And the Bears line is bad. It's not like it's a position of strength.
Hey, get my man Justin Fields some help though. I want to throw that out there.
He's ruined. I think. I don't think he has. I don't think he has a shot. I do not.
That makes me so sad.
It's a bummer. It's a real bummer. But I think.
Well, too bad we didn't have to deal with that.
Bree's done.
We're talking about the situation here, Bree.
I don't want to talk about Justin Fields. I don't care. Like I've not cared for a really long time since they read that card, and I still don't care. So I got distracted there for a second. To be fair, what even is the Bears plan? They seem directionless. I think that is a fair statement. DB Bronx 14-14. Do you both agree that they seem to be directionless?
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
are you in the receiver room?
Good not on trading for him. Joey, I did like your point about whether or not Wilson would vouch for that, because I think above all else, we've seen that, his ability to take a little bit of questionable off-field antics and kind of make them work would be the only convincing that Broncos country would need. At this point, they're so heavily on board with the Russell Wilson train. How could you not be? Which will bring me to my next point. Saturday and back together Saturday for Denver Broncos training camp was absolutely insane. One of the downfalls from that, though, in coverage against Montreal, Washington, Quan Williams was injured. Thankfully, he's out of the murky waters with any substantial injuries to that knee after that MRI, which is fantastic news. But what does this mean for the Broncos in the secondary? What are they going to do there, and how could you see this affecting the season?
This is a problem. This is not good. It's like, thankfully they avoided serious injury. But I think it just shined a light on they have no real good backup plans, especially for a team that's looking to play so much time. Okay, you've got your third safety playing one of those spots. Are you going to your fourth safety in the other one? That's kind of the maybe if you're looking at who's the best player, you go that way. But you saw I'm trying to think how I can word this without breaking reporting rules. You saw Asang Bassi get a lot of work today, I think, as a result of the K'Wan Williams injury. And so it's just I like Asang Bassi, but I don't feel super confident about him being my starting nickel. Which he would be if K'Wan Williams suffers an injury. And K'Wan Williams, it's not as severe as Bryce Callahan, but I think he has the similar thing where he hasn't played 16 games in a season before. It's always been 15 or 14. So not the end of the world. But man, and there's not really great options out there. So I think as good of a job has been done with this roster, and I really think it is a good job, this is a problem that is kind of rearing its head.
Yeah. Zach, you had a really interesting tweet, and I'd like you to explain it. You said something about the punter situation, how much money they could have saved off of that, and a couple guys they could have signed with that money.
Yeah, I love it. We'll talk about maybe we talk about the punter battle next here. But looking at there's a chance the Broncos make a change at punter. And if they do, the argument for it is they'll save $2.2 million against the cap, which is nice, especially if Corliss Waitman is kind of the same to Sam Martin, or if you look at Andrew Mason's hang time reporting, even better. That's a nice just $2.2 million to find in the couch cushions. Funnily enough, if you look at how much money Bryce Callahan and Nate Hairston, valuable slot corner pieces on this Broncos team just last season, combined, those two players signed for $2.283 million. So we're talking about $83,000 off. And $83,000, as far as NFL salary cap is concerned, is nothing. That's a very minor incentive baked into the back end of a deal. That's nothing. And the Broncos could have built that insurance in. And you might be going, well, they haven't cut Sam Martin yet, so they wouldn't have had that money. Yeah, but they have $10 million right now. So they could have done it and thought, okay, well, now maybe we're even more incentivized to get this 2.2 back in the future. I think this, for as good of a job as they did, the lack of depth at inside linebacker and the lack of depth here are two of the glaring holes on this roster that could end up really hurting this team.
Can I throw out an option to you guys? And I'm not saying I'm for or against, but I just want your option. I just want your opinions. What would yay or nay to the Broncos sign Chris Harris Jr.?
I'm for it. I think they and bring him in at this point. I don't know if I'd sign him to a big contract. I'd maybe bring him into something, because I think he'd make the roster and beat out Asang Bassi, but I don't know. You can't give him a huge chunk of money. But if you look at where the market's at, he's probably signing for around $1 million, maybe less. I think that's reasonable considering what Bryce Callahan signed for, was a better player. Chris Harris Jr. has also had injuries in recent years. What Nate Hairston signed for, who I don't know if he is a better player. Chris Harris Jr. probably signing around that range. And you just need to find a body. You need to find a warm body. And Chris Harris Jr. could be that.
I'm muted. I think, Joe, you said you'd buy me a jersey if Chris Harris Jr. came back to Denver. So I'm going to hold you to that one.
I'd
we don't want to talk about which jersey.
Bridge rebuild. I would love it.
I think that would be great at 33 years old. I think that it's still quite possible. And like you said, I don't think his contract would be absurd or out of question. And now we're already talking about CB depth. So all off season, I've been screaming about depth at that position and never having enough. And it looks like that's exactly the path that we're on right now, is asking for more. So.
Yep. And then on the punter thing, really quick, I do think Corliss Waitman has a good shot. We find for most of camp, they've been using the jugs machine. My dog's starting to spaz out, so if there's any noises, that's what's happening. Sorry, everyone. This just happens sometimes. Sam Martin was frankly outperformed by Corliss Waitman once they finally started using their legs. Corliss Waitman was averaging nearly 5 seconds of hang time, which is phenomenal, and getting good distance on the punt. Maybe it was a wildly good day of practice, but if that keeps up, they're going to go to Waitman, because if it's close, you're getting a free $2.2 million.
I don't have anything I did see a kind of an errant punt by Sam Martin, I think either Monday or Tuesday, that was quite interesting. Everybody has a bad day, so I'm not going to say that he necessarily has to get cut, but it's interesting. D Bronx 1414 says, I would feel bad for making Martin survive the McMahon era just to cut him when he finally sees the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. And Bree, to your point, is there anything to a like viewership standpoint more frustrating than just like a really bad punt? Where there's really nothing. I swear to God, there's nothing. One of those punts where he just shanks it and it's like 20 yards and you see the ref running down the field with his hands up. It drives me insane every single time.
It hit the media tower, and I was just like, how did that even happen? I'm sure it was just a chip. It's like, it happens in golf all the time. You're fine. You sliced it a little bit. But it does make me think, where was that report out of last week where that punter was basically hitting coaches in the head, nowhere near the actual goalpost? So at least it's not to that level just yet. But yeah, like you said, money, it's a business. If that's where they need to go in order to save a little change off the top, and if that can be applied elsewhere, I think that's a fantastic choice and direction to go into. D Bronx makes a really great point, though, is, man, that's kind of terrible timing there, but that's how it works. The other of note, and we've been talking about new players, old players, hurt players, returning players. Next up is going to be young players up front. Zach, take it away.
Man, I'm kind of excited about the young guys the Broncos have up front. Baron Browning looked really good throughout the first week. And then we saw them put the pads on today. They were in shells. They didn't have the pant pads on, but they had helmets and shoulder pads on. And you got to see a little more contact today. And Baron Browning continues to look terrific. I think he had 2 sacks a couple of days ago, had like another sack today. I can't wait to see it in preseason to see like how all this is translating. But it's been really, really promising to me there. Nick Benito too.
Zach,
is really
can I interrupt you real quick? Because I want to ask something about Baron Browning.
Yeah.
Okay. Plug real quick as well. I'm going to write an article. I'm watching a bunch of college film right now on what Baron Browning's college film, the premise is what his college film means for the transition, his transition to edge. And I'm curious your opinion. I know we haven't been in pads really yet, full contact type stuff, but do you think he's going to be able to hold up and set an edge on that defense in the run?
I do, because I think we've already seen it when he wasn't really able to do contact. I saw a rep with him going up against some good offensive linemen for the Broncos and setting the edge in the run. And he's had a couple really impressive run reps, mainly in pursuit, granted. But there have been the flashes of him holding up in run defense. And I think in year one, you don't have to ask him to do that. You can ask Bradley Chubb to take a lot of those snaps on first and second down and have Baron Browning, keep him fresh. Like when you're rotating Baron Browning in, you can make those rotations in be primarily passing situations. I think you're going to see something similar for Nick Benito. And when those guys are on the field together, the NASCAR package is really fun to watch. They fly off the edge. So I do think he'll get there. I think we've already seen some of the flashes of it so far in camp.
Okay, cool. That's all I had. I just wanted to ask that real quick. And then you were talking about Nick Benito. I'll let you go with that.
No, just that's all I wanted to say on the NASCAR package. Nick Benito's been
Yeah.
really impressive too. His speed and like explosion off the line jumps out, and those two together are a really really fun combo. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Matt Henningsen and Iyomo Uwazurike. Um, Henningsen had a sack today on Josh Johnson, which was pretty sweet to see. He had a solid day, I thought, today in one of his first days of practice, I'm pretty sure. And then Uwazurike, I had a comment asking me to pay attention to him, so I made a point to do so. And man, they were running him with Mike Purcell on that interior defensive line, like kind of Purcell as the defensive tackle and Uwazurike as the defensive end. And that was so fun to watch, like those big guys up front. I think that could be a really fun package to throw out onto the field in some early down situations, because it's just going to be nasty running against those two behemoths next to each other. Saw him getting some nice push in the pocket. And then what really jumped out to me watching Uwazurike and Purcell work together was there was a great rep where they twisted and Purcell had some nice bursts getting into the backfield and pressuring Josh Johnson and causing an errant throw. So I'm feeling optimistic about some of the young guys the Broncos got up front.
Okay. Can I ask one more thing here? And this is a little off topic, but Zach, I'm curious if you've watched any Josie Jewell and how is he moving around?
I'm glad you asked about it because I've had some questions on Twitter. He's looked really, really nice. Today had a highlight play. Wilson targeted the middle of the field to Salbert, and Josie Jewell went all the way up for one, fully extended, and got his hand on it and deflected it. Really nice play from him. I think Jewell's looked really good so far. Him and Jonas Griffith, I think, are going to be a good inside linebacker combo, and how good those two have looked eases some of the question marks about moving Browning as well, I think.
Cool. That was my main question. And then maybe for next training camp, I would like to see, or I don't know, I'll keep it. I'll watch in the preseason, but I'm really intrigued on how Mike Purcell looks coming off of last year. It's good to hear him. It's good to hear he had a pass rush play today. That's exciting.
100%. It was really promising to see.
All right. Well, we have a couple more days of training camp greeting us in the near future. You've got Tuesday through Friday. Zach, anything you want to let people know that you're going to be looking for directly? And then we will actually pose this, I think, later on for people to ask what they'd like to see from your coverage coming up in the next couple of days. But any last parting words of what you've seen or what you're going to be looking forward to?
Yeah, not any extra notes, but if there is anything you want notes on, get in my replies on Twitter. I want to give extra special coverage to the LTB fam. So follow up there, and if I know you're a listener, I'm definitely going to make a point to follow whatever you ask me to follow to my best ability. Go over to milehighsports.com. I'll have articles up every day. I have that KJ Hamler one out today, which has like all of his quotes pretty much in full, so you can see everything he said. I thought it was a really powerful press conference from him, so go check that out. And then every 2 days, I'm dropping. It was called Winners and Losers, but there's been a kibosh put on that, so it's not called Winners and Losers anymore. It is now going to be called Risers and Fallers. And it's going to be the Broncos stock report. So stay tuned for that. Same basic concept, though. Nothing else is really changing. I know a lot of people enjoyed those pieces. So it's just a different coat of paint. It's the same car. Check it out.
Joey, let the people know where they can find your work as well.
Yeah, guys, like I said earlier, keep an eye out for my article. I haven't written an article in a long time, so honestly, guys, this is the first time in a while that I've really been into the film, and I don't know, I go through these weird phases where I'm just like not interested in doing that. And then I go through these obsessive periods where I am. So I'm going back into the Baron Browning Ohio State film. I've been having a blast doing it. I can't wait to let you guys know what I see from that and how I think maybe his transition to edge will work, and see what I can find there. So you can find all of that at Mile High Sports, and then just give me a follow at JR Drafts. That's my two things.
Absolutely love it. You can follow Zach_Seegers. You can set your notifications as you so wish. I absolutely oblige you to do so. I think that would be the most useful part of your time for the rest of this week. If you can't make it out to training camp, you can follow me at Breebree0322. You can catch me next on the MHRT 5280 podcast, as well as Wednesday with these guys. Again, we'll be breaking down more training camp coverage, everything and anything that happens, and all of your questions related to. And then you can find me Thursday for the Fan Cave 98.1 FM. It's been a great night with you all. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't already, and then we'll talk to you guys soon. And let's go Broncos country. Let's ride.
Broncos. Let's ride.